Well, Donald Trump earlier today had said that he wouldn't use force to acquire Greenland, and he repeated his call for immediate negotiations for the United States to take control of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. The American president told leaders at the World Economic Forum that his demand was a small ask for a piece of ice. He also insisted that the US acquiring the island would pose no threat to NATO, of which Denmark and the US are both members. Well, President Trump went on to describe Denmark as ungrateful and said the United States was the only country that could keep Greenland safe.
It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired. There's nothing wrong with it. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
Well, of course, the breaking news at the top of the show is that a deal, he says, has been done. But let's see if we can fact-check some of Donald Trump's statements about Greenland. And for that, I'm joined by Marisol Maddox, who's an expert on Arctic security from the Institute of Arctic Studies. Welcome, Marisol. So, I'm going to play you a few clips from President Trump's speech today at the World Economic Forum and ask for your expert analysis. Fingers on buzzers. Here's the first Trump clip.
Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle.
Marisol Maddox, is Greenland undeveloped and undefended?
So Greenland is massive. It's over 800,000 square miles. It's 80% covered in a massive ice sheet, right, which also, I would add, holds 21 feet of global sea level rise. So not inconsequential that that ice is melting. So, in terms of it being not largely inhabited, that's accurate. It's 56,000 people about that live there. There's really a lack of infrastructure, very few roads, largely concentrated in the south around Nuuk, which is the capital. And the lack of infrastructure is really one of those major constraints to being able to access some of the more desirable deposits of minerals and things like that in Greenland. And so the amount of upfront capital that would be necessary is very cost prohibitive from a business standpoint, which is why you don't see a lot of active mines.
And undefended?
So, undefended, absolutely not. Greenland is a member of NATO. If there was any indication of Russian or Chinese aggression and an intention to invade, you would get the NATO response. We also have, surveillance and intelligence collection that would indicate that well in advance. So, Greenland is covered by NATO. So that's important to note.
OK, so that's a yes and a no. Greenland, undeveloped, yes. Undefended, no. All right, on to the next Trump claim.
In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there.
Marisol Maddox, is that true? Has Denmark spent only $2 million on Greenland's defences? Is there no sign of Denmark there?
So that was a figure from 2019. And I think you could point to the fact that Greenland has not been invaded. So actually, from a Danish perspective, I would say that was smart at the time. Those investments were not necessary at that time because the threat environment did not require that investment. When it comes to the Arctic, it's about strategic, very tactical, targeted investments because it's very easy to spend a lot of money there. Now it's a completely different situation. Denmark is spending now up to over 3% GDP in defense spending. They have billions of dollars in game-changing defense investments, radar, F-35s, long-range drones, updated, patrol vessels. And I mean, there's so much that they're investing in. So it's a real game changer, especially over the last about 18 months.
So he was using old figures. So in the past, he'd have been right. Now he's wrong. Let's have a look at clip 3.
After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
So fact-checking that third Trump claim, Marisol, is it true that the US owned Greenland after World War II and then gave it back to Denmark?
So we did not own Greenland. What happened was in 1940, both Denmark and Norway were invaded by the Nazis. And so the U.S. came in and there was an agreement that was signed with the Danish ambassador. So this was an agreement that the U.S. would step in to Greenland to provide support because at that time we were concerned about the Nazis invading Greenland. After World War II ended, the U.S., that was when we created NATO, right? So 1949, we created NATO, and then 1951, we have the defense agreement that is the really important document that gives us a lot of leeway in terms of our defense presence on Greenland and gives us that ability to have permanent basing there. Of course, all predicated upon the existence of NATO and predicated without any due prejudice against Greenland being a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. So also something noteworthy.
Okay, so that sounds like a no. We'll take our final clip.
And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease.
Well, that's a big, bold claim. What do you think, Marisol? Does the US need to own Greenland in order to defend it?
No, this is a strong no. Again, that 1951 defense agreement is really key here. We can do a lot. If we wanted to build 10 more bases, we could do that under the existing agreement. Again, it's really that, after World War II and after the Cold War, the threat environment changed, after 9/11, which I would also point out, again, this is the 25th anniversary of 9/11 coming up. Our allies showed up for the Americans as the only time Article 5 has been triggered. There was a change. We were focused on the global war on terror. We weren't looking up north. That's why I entered this field, is because I saw, about 10 or so years ago that there was an underappreciation of how things were changing, and we need to kind of think differently and get in front of that. And so it's a result of those dynamics changing that now we're having to think about this differently. But if we want to have the Danes invest more, which we clearly do want, then they have demonstrated through actions that they are willing to do that. We also have something called the Permanent Committee, which is a dedicated forum for the U.S. to meet with their counterparts from Denmark and Greenland to discuss security matters. So really, there is nothing that we can do through owning Greenland that we can't really do by just going through the agreement that we currently have. And under the current circumstances, Denmark and Greenland pay for it. So It's actually a very favorable proposition for the U.S.
Okay, I make that one truth and 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll call them non-truths. Thanks for talking us through that, Marisol Maddox from the Institute of Arctic Studies.
Thank you.
Juno Berthelsen is a Greenlandic activist and member of the Greenlandic Parliament. Welcome to DW. Can we start with your reaction to Donald Trump's speech today to the World Economic Forum?
Thank you for having me on your show, Phil. Of course, we are relieved. We have repeated that the Greenlandic people are united, all the parties in Parliament, that we don't want to be Americans, we don't want to be Danish, we want to be Greenlanders, or Galaslit Inuit, as we're called in our own language.
And do you believe...
As I've said
I beg your pardon, please continue.
As I've said in many interviews with media from all around the world, we've been adamant in pursuing a peaceful outcome through diplomacy. And we are relieved as Greenlandic Parliament members to witness the result of our efforts, both Greenlandic government officials as well as Parliament members. And we are relieved that we've come to this place in time now where we are seeing the statement that military power or military invasion is out of the picture. So now we, the Greenlandic people,
forgive me, but that sounds like a very low bar. You say that you're pleased with what you have achieved, but what you have achieved is the world's biggest superpower saying today that they won't invade. That doesn't sound like a massive achievement.
Well, it's very important for the whole world to know that we need to center this conversation on the rights of the Greenlandic people. So diminishing this whole question and the situation that we're seeing now to sort of power play between superpowers and this rivalry between old colonial powers is something that we need to center away from. We need to center and focus on the Greenlandic people and our right to self-determination. So we need to follow international law and international rule-based order, and we're adamant to pursue a situation and a future where we can get back to a stable situation where we keep de-escalating what we've been seeing from the beginning.
Yours is an opposition party. Is there a world in which Donald Trump's continued insistence on owning Greenland has in fact benefited your cause of Greenlandic independence?
Well, no matter any situation, we have been in an ongoing process towards our independence. This is not something that's come out of the blue or that's been arisen for the last year. This is a decades long. We've been colonized for several hundred years. We as a people have survived for thousands of years in the Arctic. The Greenlandic people's spirit is unbreakable. We're going to be here for thousands of years. But right now, it's important for us to continue our pursuit to self-determination and to become a sovereign nation. And we're happy to see that, from the EU, from the UK, we're seeing the terms or the language that the whole world needs to recognize our right as a people, as a sovereign people, the Greenlandic people, and our right to self-determination.
So, tell us about the crisis brochure that the Greenlandic government issued today. What sort of crisis does it envisage, and how are Greenlanders supposed to respond? Well,
we do need to look at the fact that Greenland has always been the way that our society is structured and the way that infrastructure is positioned, or how the infrastructure in Greenland looks. A lot of people already have as a habit that everyone has a freezer. So the way that we're copying, in a way, what they usually do in Denmark in these situations is something that is unnecessary, because the shops here and everything that we're used to buying is for several months at a time. So it doesn't make sense for us to stock up individually in our homes, because these things are being prepared for every single day and every single month and every single year in Greenland.
Okay, and what sort of crisis does this brochure envisage?
Could you put some context into that?
Well, there's a brochure, and they say that if everything goes wrong, then stock up on this, stock up on that, stock up on the other. So what is the crisis that this brochure is intended to help you, as Greenlanders, to get over?
Well, we need to think about our people's interest, and much of the population around the coast are struggling in their everyday lives, and the indigenous peoples of Greenland, Galaslit, Inuit, are used to hunting, and we need to see some action from our own government in terms of finding a way for our people to sustain itself. And of course, we need to build on the relations that we do have, that have been in place for a long time, to make sure that the Greenlandic people can sustain themselves.
Thanks for joining us, Greenlandic lawmaker Juno Berthelsen.
Thank you.